Welcome to this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Today's conversation will be about Steve McQueen's 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave was adapted to the screen by John Ridley from the Solomon Northrop biography that he wrote now nearly 160 years ago. And it tells the harrowing tale of Solomon, who was a once freed man who lived with his wife and his children in New York and was basically a very successful artist and a citizen of more of a modern America. But then he is eventually tricked into heading south to D.C., where he is eventually kidnapped and forced onto the slave market in the southern states. And the tale basically goes through his point of view in his 12 years as a slave, going from plantation to plantation, from owner to owner, and how he manages that and how he tries to regain or maintain a form of integrity and humanity as he goes through it. I'm going to bring in my co-host now. This film is manned by the British director Steve McQueen, who now is doing his, I think, third straight more critically acclaimed film after Hunger and Shame. And he has become a director who really relies on the ability to tell a stripped down story of needs, human needs, whether it be the need to control someone, the need to survive, or the need to basically fit in. What impresses you most in the limited exposure you've had to Steve McQueen?
I think what impressed me the most is his ability to tell so much with so few scenes, because I think a lot of the scenes are very long and very deliberately paced. And I think I read on the IMDb trivia that this movie was shot in 35 days. And I think that really makes sense in considering that he's not setting up different shots for every single scene he makes. Rather, he's telling a lot with fewer scenes.
I agree. I think the ability to take those longer takes, like one of the more, I think, difficult scenes to watch with Michael Fassbender whipping Lupita Nyong'o's character, that takes place over 4 to 5 minutes, but you can tell 3 or 4 point of views without ever changing the setting, without ever changing the camera position. So his ability to make many shots and many scenes out of few elements makes him somebody who can do his job in an efficient manner. I think I want to start talking about Michael Fassbender, who is the more villainous slave owner. He probably has the most thankless position in a film like this, where you have to play pure evil. Many have compared it to Ralph Fiennes' character in Schindler's List. But I start with Fassbender because Fassbender had the most experience with McQueen. And so that's why I feel that he felt comfortable going to these, places of great darkness. Can you just speak to why Fassbender is so good at basically letting everything go when he was on screen?
I think it helps that Fassbender's an actor who's been in a lot of movies recently, but he hasn't been to the point where people recognize him for being Michael Fassbender. So he's able to really melt into the role and become the character that the script needs it to be, right? And I also liked how he also got his point of view that he thought slavery was justified in his own ways because of what he was doing. And I think that's something that's brought up a lot in this movie, how these various slave owners justify their ownership needs. Not needs, I mean.
Yeah, well, they justify it as a commerce transaction. So, like, I paid for them. They are mine. They are, different than what you think they are. Let's go back and discuss, obviously, the lead role in this film. Undoubtedly the real lead role of Solomon Northrop. Magnificently played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who is finally getting a big break in front of American audiences. his character in many ways is presented as someone that is not the traditional slave, or somebody we don't think is a traditional slave. He's educated, right? He's cultured. He has a moral compass, and it's not the portrayal that we're used to. But so the dilemma in the film becomes, how do we see, or how does he fight to keep that sense of character and integrity and still be able to fit in? And in many ways, through the owners and the owners he goes through, he kind of learns that lesson the hard way. You know, he trusts the wrong people, or he puts too much faith in some people and he gets burned for it. So talk about, I guess, first what you thought of Ejiofor's performance and any of the qualities that made Northrop someone that is worth our time in telling a story.
I think what made it show that he was going to be an interesting character to study in a very important topic was when he talks about how in his opinion, being a slave is not a life worth living. So he wanted to, he always wanted to find ways to break free from the life he had found himself in. And I think doing so and his interaction with other characters in the movie really highlighted how important the story was, rather than just, okay, we're just going to tell the entire history of slavery in an hour and a half, 2 hours, but rather than we're going to tell one story about one man's dilemma throughout the struggles of a slavery in the South.
Yeah, and I think so. I think having a key point of view, and we saw before he was a slave and then when he was after a slave, that allowed us to kind of feel for the character more than, not to reckless or anything, but knowing that he'd been taken so ruthlessly and seeing that from where he was kind of made you empathize even further in a topic area that's so sensitive even now, hundreds of years, over 150 years after it was fact. One of the other slaves that we're introduced to and familiarize ourselves with is another character that is, fighting for some dignity, and you feel rightfully deserves more, and that's Lupita Nyong'o's Patsy. This is her first screen role, and she's being recognized by the Academy in the supporting category. Talk about how Patsy is either similar or different from what Solomon's doing, and how they learn from each other, possibly.
I think I think she really, really shows the other side of what Solomon knows. I mean, we know he wasn't born a slave, he was born a free man. So Patsy has spent her entire life in slavery. So she knows nothing else but the life that she has. And when she even tries to get around it a little bit, she finds herself punished. And I think she really shows, I think Lupita Nyong'o really shows how much pain she felt for going against what her master asked for. And I think that really shows how difficult it really was to be a slave in those times. And I think that's a story that definitely needed to be told.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like in Solomon's case, he's somebody, but in Patsy's case, she feels in the right way that she is, serving her master in a sense that she wants to do good. And then, the scene after she takes or steals the soap, and her claim that I do so much work for you. I do 500 pounds of cotton, and all I want to be is clean. Can you not understand that after I've put my blood and my sweat towards your service? It's just somebody who kind of is broken at that point. Where we'd see Solomon's already broken, you kind of see when Patsy breaks, and that's an interesting take.
Yeah, then we did talk about how this was an important story to tell, and this is a story that's based on a book, an autobiography actually, by Solomon Northrop, that's almost over 150 years old. And when it was rediscovered in the 1960s, the historians went back and made sure to look at whether the history was accurate. And I think when they're making this movie, they made the same assurances. So do you think historical accuracy helped this movie by minimizing any potential criticism that could have happened because of such sensitive topic?
Yeah, I think so. Because I do feel it's one of the more realistic on screen of slavery that I've ever seen. And I think the fact that, in one way, it's totally wrong that they need to check and say, hey, okay, this did happen. We're not telling you a lie just because you're going to be offended by it. I think even if it was, partially not true or exaggerated, it's a story worth telling because it's a point of view that we have never seen before, right? Taking somebody's work from fresh off being a slave, writing this story, that's just a story that we've never seen before. So sure, it helps that it was, fact checked twice, 3 times, but I would have liked to see the story, even if it was slightly off in historical accuracy. I think it was worth telling.
Yeah, then the only problem would have been if there was any historical inaccuracies, and then there would have been the whole, there would have been so many people jumping on this movie, and I think it would have clouded from the message the movie was trying to send, that even though it's not just about, it's not just about the history, it's about the pain that we've gone through, that people have gone through in the past to get to the point we are today, and we still need to go in the future. So I think it was good that they looked at history to try to deflect any potential criticisms.
Okay. You talked about earlier how Fassbender is someone we don't know. But then I also, when I was watching this film, a lot of the smaller roles are familiar faces. Whether it be those who are enslaving or those who are slaves. I'm thinking of Paul Giamatti or Brad Pitt. Do you think using such notable actors in small positions was distracting in any way? Or did it actually kind of help the film and the storytelling?
I think it kind of helped show the message that a lot of people, Chiwetel Ejiofor has been in a good amount of filmography, but most of the American audience doesn't recognize him. So I think it kind of, in the audience's mind, it created this sort of barrier, you know what I mean, between, okay, you may not know who the main characters of the movie are, but you know who the supporting characters are. So I think that showed what the difference was between being a slave in that time and being, this may sound a little controversial, but the point I'm trying to get at is it just shows how being a slave was a thankless job, while being a white free man was, you got a lot more credit for that in that time.
That's an interesting point of view, almost kind of,
controversial.
Taking a, popular actor in Brad Pitt and showing that he was in many ways privileged to what Solomon Northup was. That's interesting. I think it was more distracting than anything. Mm-hmm. I know it's great for Brad Pitt to help his own movie, but at that time I thought it was, hey, I'm watching Brad Pitt right now. It wasn't, I'm watching someone who can help Solomon. We're nearing the end of this edition of Inside the Academy Studio, and like always, we like to ask a few questions. So I ask, what was your favorite moment in 12 Years a Slave?
My favorite moment, quote unquote, because you're not really supposed to like anything you see on screen, obviously, in a movie like this, was any scene involving Lupita Nyong'o, and especially the one where Solomon is forced to lash out on Lupita Nyong'o. I think we mentioned this before. It really, really captured what the director was going for, and it's really hard for an actor to connect with an audience when they have such short amount of time on screen, and Lupita Nyong'o is able to do that with the scenes that she has, even though we don't know her backstory, unlike Solomon.
My favorite scene was shortly after Chiwetel or Solomon Northup attacks Paul Dano's character, and then Paul Dano tries to act revenge by trying to hang him, and then he's saved by Benedict Cumberbatch's second in command. But he's saved to a point. He's still left out for many hours on his toes, trying to survive that noose around his neck. I think that scene kind of epitomized what it was even to be in favor of a master. You were in favor to a point, but you were never an equal. And the ability of Chiwetel Ejiofor just in that scene to show that still desperation to survive, but, still kind of say, okay, thank God I'm alive because they like me a little bit, but still they don't like me enough to give me the dignity to cut me down right away and give me some water. What is your least favorite part of 12 Years a Slave?
I think my least favorite part is a little bit more of a missed opportunity rather than a least favorite part, because I think you didn't realize it until after reading up after. Kavenzaveh Wallace was in this movie, and of course we know her from Beast of the Southern Wilds, and her most famous line, "Beast it, beast it, beast it." So we know that she's an amazing young actress, and she plays Solomon's daughter in the beginning of the movie, and I think using her ability to connect with the audience, along with Chidwell, like we know what Chidwell Ejiofor has done with the Solomon character, I think it would have made the ending of the movie more emotionally satisfying when you see that reunion with his family in the end.
Okay. My least favorite part was the part where they had the white laborer join the camp with the slaves, looking just to make a honest wage, and then Solomon kind of turns all his faith into him that he could help him deliver the letter. To me, that felt shoehorned in. Maybe I'm unaware of the history that there were significant, white males that would come and work on these plantations too. But to me, it felt like you were already building the sense of trust and distrust with the owners, but to have somebody who's their colleague and then turn on him kind of almost felt like too much. I am sure it may have happened in real life, but in terms of a story, I think you could have saved it. Okay, the last thing we like to do is word association. So when you think of 12 Years a Slave, what word do you think of?
Gazebo.
And I think of whips. So we think of 12 Years a Slave, we think of gazebo and whips. That is this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Thank you.